blackened savanna smolders beneath a bruised sky following a massive lightning strike. Small flames lick at fallen acacia branches, releasing thick gray plumes. 3 early hominids step hesitantly across the scorching ash, using long sticks to overturn burning logs in search of roasted scavenged meat. A young gatherer wipes streaming tears from her eyes, her chest violently convulsing as she chokes on the heavy, acrid air. The survival tension is absolute. The fire offers pre-cooked calories crucial for survival, but the surrounding toxic haze threatens to asphyxiate them. Researchers suggest that these dangerous scavenging missions were humanity's first forced, unavoidable exposures to intense smoke inhalation. They were stepping into a deadly environmental hazard just to eat. But here is the strange part. A violent blizzard seals the narrow limestone entrance of a deep cave. Inside, a family presses their shivering bodies together around a dying, sputtering heart. An elder desperately throws handfuls of damp, green moss onto the embers. Dense, inescapable smoke instantly fills the low rock ceiling, blinding them. A mother frantically waves a piece of stiff leather over her infant's purple face to clear the toxic cloud, while coughing violently herself. The physical dilemma is terrifying. Step outside into the lethal frostbite, or stay inside and suffocate. Scientists believe that bringing fire into enclosed spaces effectively turned these caves into accidental chemical testing chambers, forcing early human lungs to endure severe biological stress. But something changed. A humid, stagnant valley swarms with thick clouds of biting flies and disease-carrying ticks. A young woman violently slaps her swollen shoulders, scratching her infected skin until blood runs down her arm. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, she drags a heavy, sap-covered pine branch directly into the hot coals of their fire. She physically leans into the dense, white smog, pulling her crying child into the blinding vapor until the lethal insect swarm finally disperses. The tension of constant parasitic attack was a microscopic, invisible war that threatened to bleed early humans dry. Anthropologists propose that intense smoke was actively utilized as humanity's first biological shield, a toxic barrier deliberately maintained to survive relentless insect predation. Wait, what happened next? Darkness closes in around a fragile campsite, accompanied by the distant, terrifying roar of a cave lion. An old, scarred hunter frantically grabs a bundle of dried, purple-flowered weeds, tossing them onto the fire to push back the shadows. As a heavy, sweet-smelling vapor rolls over his face, he inhales deeply. Suddenly, his rigidly clenched jaw goes slack. The white-knuckled grip on his stone spear loosens, and the weapon drops heavily into the dirt. His panicked, rapid breathing slows into a deep, rhythmic calm. Researchers suggest that some wild vegetation contained powerful psychoactive compounds, accidentally delivering the first chemical anxiety relief to human nervous systems pushed to the absolute edge of terror. But reality was far stranger. A freezing shelter built from mammoth ribs sits isolated in a snow-covered wasteland. The winter hunt has failed completely. A young boy clutches his violently cramping stomach, his dirty fingernails scraping the frozen dirt in hunger. The survival tension is critical. Desperation is quickly turning into dangerous aggression within the starving group. An exhausted elder reaches into a leather pouch, pulls out a handful of pungent, dried root fibers, and throws them directly onto the smoldering ash. A heavy, yellow vapor fills the cramped space. As the boy breathes it in, his crying abruptly stops, and his rigid muscles go limp against the hide blankets. Researchers suggest that inhaling specific alkaloid-rich smoke may have temporarily suppressed human appetite receptors, allowing groups to survive catastrophic famine without turning on each other. The smoke tricked their empty stomachs into a false sense of fullness. This shouldn't have been possible. Heavy rain floods the entrance of a shallow rock shelter, masking the sounds of unseen predators. A mother rocks back and forth in the mud, tightly gripping a torn, bloody piece of child-sized fur. The psychological weight of constant death threatens to shatter her mind entirely. If she stops functioning, her remaining dependents will die. She places a chunk of hardened tree resin directly onto the hottest coals, leaning her face into the dense, dark smoke. She inhales deeply, holding her breath until her violently shaking shoulders finally drop. Scientists believe early humans used psychoactive smoke as a chemical trauma suppressant, artificially numbing the immense grief and psychological horror of Ice Age mortality rates. It was a crude, inhaled coping mechanism to prevent complete mental collapse. And then something unusual happened. In the damp shadows of a dense pine forest, 8 hunters sit completely motionless in a tight circle. Tomorrow they must coordinate to trap a massive, panicked woolly rhino. The fear of being trampled creates a suffocating tension. One panicked mistake will kill them all. The leader picks up a hollowed seashell carrying a smoldering bed of crushed leaves, inhaling a deep drag of the blue haze before passing it to his neighbor. They lock eyes in the darkness, their rapid breathing slowly falling into perfect synchronization. Anthropologists theorize that shared rituals involving psychoactive smoke artificially lowered group cortisol levels, forcing deep chemical trust and social bonding. This shared neurological alteration bonded fragile groups together, creating a unified organism capable of surviving impossible odds. Scientists didn't expect this. A nomadic band treks across a blistering, sun-baked desert, kicking up clouds of red dust. They desperately burn dry, brittle sagebrush under a rock overhang, coughing violently as the harsh, stinging smoke clears their sinuses. Thousands of miles away, deep in an isolated, humid jungle, a different group slashes thick, wet vines, throwing them onto a fire. They sit silently as the sweet, heavy smoke induces powerful, hallucinatory trances. The tension of migration forced humans into a brutal geographic lottery, risking poisoning with every new plant they burned for heat. Researchers suggest that as humans spread across continents, they accidentally mapped completely different neurochemical landscapes based entirely on what local weeds grew near their campsites. The environment dictated the psychological escape. This changes everything. Rocky grave lies open in the fading twilight. A grieving mother places heavy, jagged stones over the stiff body of a fallen hunter. The smell of decay is beginning to attract scavenging wolves, creating a terrifying survival tension. The dead are drawing predators straight to the living. An elder strikes a flint, aggressively spreading a thick layer of burning aromatic cannabis seeds and wild sage over the shallow pit. The heavy smoke physically coats their skin and animal hide clothes, masking the scent of death. The mother inhales the lingering haze, wiping her soot-stained hands on her furs. Archaeologists suggest that early burials utilized intense smoke not just for spiritual rites, but as crucial biological fumigation, a physical barrier to repel scavengers and sanitize the air around rotting corpses. But here's the strange part. Deep in a humid, ancient American forest, a leader carefully snaps the massive, sticky leaves of a wild Nicotiana plant. Two rival bands stand at the edge of the clearing, wooden weapons gripped tightly. The survival tension is razor-sharp. A single misunderstood gesture will spark a massacre. The leader places the dried leaves on a hot coal and deliberately blows the heavy, highly toxic smoke across the faces of the opposing warriors. A warrior blinks through the stinging haze, his chest expanding as he slowly lowers his heavy spear. Researchers suggest that early, extremely potent tobacco was cultivated strictly as a sacred chemical tool for binding treaties and forcing peaceful physiological resets between hostile factions. It was a biologically dangerous substance treated with absolute reverence. But the archaeology revealed an impossible twist. Inside a sealed animal hide tent on the Eurasian steppe, glowing red stones radiate blistering heat. The tribe is suffering through a brutal multi-year drought, and desperation is peaking. An elder violently throws handfuls of raw hemp seeds directly onto the scorching rocks. Thick white vapor instantly explodes upward, blinding everyone inside. The men and women rock back and forth, inhaling the overwhelming smoke, their lungs burning as they shout into the sensory void. The tension is purely psychological. They are deliberately pushing their nervous systems to the absolute brink of collapse to trigger visions that might lead them to water. Anthropologists suggest this deliberate pursuit of intense intoxication is a primal biological drive, utilized as an extreme survival mechanism to endure environmental despair. Scientists didn't expect this next discovery. A young woman wipes soot from her tear-streaked cheeks, her chest heaving as she forces herself to stay near the smoldering hearth. Ash drifts through the freezing air, settling onto her heavy fur garments. She inhales deeply, immediately gripping her throat as the harsh vapor burns her airway. The lungs are biologically built strictly to process pure oxygen. Forcing thick, particulate smoke into them causes immediate cellular distress. The survival tension is visceral. Breathing this toxic air is literally poisoning her delicate tissue just to survive the winter. Researchers discovered a massive biological contradiction. The human brain already possessed complex neuroreceptors perfectly tuned to these specific plant compounds millions of years before we ever controlled fire. Our nervous systems were already silently waiting for these exact molecules. Wait, what happened next? A modern worker stands beneath the harsh fluorescent lights of a roaring 20th century factory floor. His hands tremble slightly as a massive machine mechanically packs perfectly uniform, chemically treated dry leaves into thin white paper. He steps outside, strikes a match, and inhales deeply from a manufactured cylinder, staring blankly at a ticking clock. The immediate physical danger is completely gone. There are no predators, no freezing storms, and no starvation. Yet he still instinctively seeks the chemical escape. Researchers point out a terrifying historical shift. Modern industrialists entirely weaponized the ancient human drive for neural alteration. They stripped away the sacred, survival-based context of botanical smoke, deliberately engineering the plant compounds to hit the nervous system faster and maximize addiction for profit. What took indigenous tribes thousands of years to carefully balance was turned into a mass-produced, fatal extraction mechanism in mere centuries. But the tragedy goes much deeper. A young woman stands in the freezing rain outside a towering, silent glass building. She shivers violently, pulling her jacket tight as she cups her bare hands around a flickering lighter to shield it from the wind. She sparks the small flame, inhaling a sharp drag of thick, gray smoke, and holds it deep in her chest as the crushing stress of the modern world temporarily fades. The survival tension is no longer a physical threat, but a profound psychological exhaustion. The desperate need to find a single moment of chemical peace in an overwhelming reality. Anthropologists suggest that despite our glowing screens and concrete cities, we are still fundamentally the exact same anxious, terrified primates that once huddled around the Ice Age hearth. We forced our delicate lungs to process toxic smoke just to endure the horror of existence. The fires have changed. But our desperate need to escape our own minds remains completely unbroken.